So I don't mess it up, what are you currently serving as?
I'm currently serving as a district court judge.
Okay, which district, all that good stuff?
Well, it's Perry County District Court.
Okay.
So yeah, it's Perry and Pulaski are this judicial district.
Right.
And so that's where I'm serving there, and have been doing that I'm in my 8th year.
Okay. So I guess just kind of give us a little bit of just about a background of who you are, kind of your experience to, hold this next position here.
Okay. Well, I've been a district judge for the last 8 years, and so I think that experience goes a long way. We're losing 155 years of judicial experience with the 6 retirements that we're having this election cycle. So I think that's important. I worked in the mental health field before I went to law school. Went to law school here in Little Rock at night at the Bowen School, and continued to work in the mental health field some during that. And then I've worked as a prosecutor and in private practice for about 15 years. At the prosecutor's office, I tended to move toward the restorative justice end of things, and I've worked with drug courts and juvenile courts for the last 7 years.
Okay. And I guess too, and I know it's kind of odd to say sort of a platform, because I know the judicial races are a lot different than what people are
Right.
tend to used to. But I guess that as best you can, what is your platform for this? It's circuit court. Is it 9th district?
It's 9th Division.
Division. Yeah, 9th
Yeah, right. 6th Judicial District, but 9th Division.
Okay.
So it's traditionally been the mental health court and the drug court. And so under the Hunt Decree, which set up the 2 different sub-districts and left one position as at-large, the reason it was left at-large is it was considered the mental health court. And so that's what first caused me to look at this position. It was just because that lined up well with my background in mental health, and the fact that that had been the drug court docket also, and I've got a lot of experience with that. Right now, the drug court is being done by Judge James. My hope is that if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, that I'll be able to get part of that back. I also, in private practice, have had experience in the other cases that this court will hear, which are probate cases, domestic cases, and mental health cases.
And I guess too, it's a wide array in this specific court. I mean, like you said, you've got your domestic cases all the way to drug and probate. I mean, it's all over the spectrum.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, if you're a circuit judge, you could hear any type of case. The administrative plan generally sets what types of cases the judge is going to hear, and it's a little bit more specific here in Pulaski County just because there are so many positions.
Yeah.
But in most places in the state, a circuit judge is going to hear all types of cases, or in a lot of places in the state. And same thing with a law degree. When you get a law degree, you can handle any kind of case, whether it's a criminal case or a car wreck or a probate or domestic case. So
I guess too, and I know it's a little different with the judicial things going on, but I guess what kind of changes do you want to try and implement when it comes to this office?
Okay. Well, there are a couple of things that I've talked about a few times on the campaign trail. One is making the court calendar more accessible. Lots of times it's difficult to get cases heard just because there are so many cases coming through the court. But a lot of cases settle at the last minute. So when you go to the courthouse, oftentimes in the afternoons or on Fridays, there's not a lot going on, even though the docket is pretty full. And so I want to make the docket more accessible and online, so the litigants and lawyers can see when something comes off the court's docket, and if they have something that they're ready to get heard, that they can get over there and do that without any sort of delay. The other thing, and this is really what I'm more passionate about, is I think that we could have more problem-solving courts here in the 6th Judicial District. Drug courts, and we have a drug court here, but that's just really one type of problem-solving courts. And nationally, there's a trend that more and more of these problem-solving courts are popping up, whether they be hope courts or veterans courts or domestic violence courts. And there's real opportunity, I think, for judges to have an impact on the community more directly through those types of courts. And there's funding available.
So are those kind of like sub-courts in a way?
It's a specific way of dealing with types of cases. So like a drug court, and you're probably familiar with that idea, but it's people that come in and instead of going to prison, they're put in a more kind of restrictive probation where they have real accountability. They have a lot more one-on-one contact with the judge, and they're given a lot of kind of wraparound services in the community. So it ends up, I think it impacts communities in that people get to stay home, people get to be with their families, but also people are getting the treatment that they need instead of just being warehoused.
Got it. And I guess that kind of leads me to my next question here. It seems like the bench, just in recent years, has really, is more cognizant of having that compassion value of it instead of
Right.
just, this is the law, this is the sentence you're supposed to get, throw in the book, and it seems like a lot more of that compassion is starting to seep into that position.
Right. And I like that you use the word compassion, because a lot of times people think of empathy and, making sure that judges can see things from somebody's perspective that's coming in front of them. But the compassion adds in not only that empathy, but then taking action on that. And I think that's important, and I think that nationally that's the way courts are moving, and I think it can have a real impact. I've been on the Drug Court Professionals Board for the last 4 years, and I really feel like drug courts in Arkansas are very judge-centric. We don't have a whole lot of standardized practices in drug courts, but a drug court that's run well with a judge that's engaged and that is looking to have a meaningful impact on the community can make a real difference.
And I guess too, how important is that aspect of a judge to not have that compassion, and I guess too, how much of a, I won't say burden, but a responsibility is it, do you think, that a judge is to kind of be out in the community, to kind of be sort of that educator when it comes to just like law stuff in general?
That's a difficult position for judges to be in. I do think that they need to be part of the community and out and listening to people and talking to people and making sure people understand the court system and how it works. But at the same time, judges do have to be detached in some way to make sure that they are making rules based on the law and the applicable rules of procedure and not get too personally invested.
Right.
I mean, it's important that you understand and care and treat people like people, but that at the same time, you're following the law as it's been provided.
I guess I'm Joe Q voter, and I guess why should I vote for Judge Andy Gill?
The first thing I would say is judicial experience. I mean, we are losing 6 circuit judges that have been around for a long time, and I think I said this earlier, but it's 155 years of judicial experience that's leaving the bench. And being a judge is very different than being a lawyer, than being an advocate in the courtroom. And I used to think that was the easier job, that as a lawyer I had to get all the witnesses there, I had to get everything prepared for court, and the judge just got to listen and make the ruling from up there. But when you're faced with those decisions, then they impact, if somebody's going to be able to go home to be with their family that night, or whether they're going to have a judgment against them, or where children are going to be living. I mean, those are difficult decisions, and I have learned a lot over the last 7 years, and I think that that's important. I think that my experience in the mental health field and with substance abuse treatment is important too, because that bleeds over into all areas of law. It's not just criminal law like people would think of often, but probate cases and guardianships and domestic cases. Issues of substance abuse and issues of mental health are often important in those kinds of cases also.
I guess too, just kind of breaking off here a little bit, why do you think it is that people just really don't pay that much attention to the judge cases? And I know it just seems like we've got a lot going on here in Pulaski County this go around, kind of just with all the retirements. But why do you think people just don't seem to be as into it as they are, the legislative process?
I think part of it is because people don't expect to come in front of a judge. They don't know that could really impact them. And really, a judge, as an individual, is going to hear cases that are going to impact families and individuals in very direct ways, probably more so than any individual legislator. But I think also the fact that it's nonpartisan, and I appreciate that it's nonpartisan, but people don't have those normal categories to put people into. If they don't see a D or an R, it's a little bit more difficult for them to get their head around, how they want to vote or who they think that they favor.
Well, and too, it's like campaigning for you guys is a lot different than you can't go up there and I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z when it's like, well, I just kind of follow the law.
Right. I mean, it is difficult to have those conversations because we're not allowed to make comments on things that might come in front of us that could cause us to recuse. And so mostly we are limited to talking about our personal experience and, and what we think that we'll bring to the bench.